Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson Today. We are listening to most disturbing cases.
For Christine, the months of searching for Craig with no result when they arrived, it appeared that the robber had already fled the scene. Officers then spoke to the woman who lived in the apartment. Her reluctance to speak made officers suspicious about her behavior, so they questioned her further. They'd soon realize that the woman had a link to the case of murder victim, 24-year-old Petra Pazitka. But who was the woman? And how did she know Petra? Braunschweig, Germany, is the largest city in the state of Lower Saxony, with a population of almost 250,000. During the medieval era, Braunschweig was a powerful and influential center of commerce and trade. Today, it's a major center of scientific research and development. Its architecture is heavily influenced by the Middle Ages, and the city's famous for sausages, asparagus, and gingerbread. It's a city that combines traditional living with modern conveniences and is a must for those wanting to experience history and art combined. As for safety, Braunschweig has a relatively low crime rate as compared to other European cities. However, in 1984, Braunschweig was the center of the strange disappearance of Petra Pasitka. There's never been much information released about 24-year-old Petra Pasitka. She was born in 1960, but exactly where remains unknown. She was born and raised by her parents in Wolfsburg, Germany, along with her younger brother, Karsten. According to media reports, she was raised in a happy and loving environment. After completing her high school studies, Petra enrolled at a university in Braunschweig, Germany, to study towards a degree in computer science. The city was about 20 miles away from her hometown of Wolfsburg, so she decided to find accommodations at a student housing facility to avoid the daily commute. From reports, Petra was known to keep a low profile and kept mostly to herself while focusing on completing her studies. She kept a few close friends, but there was no mention of a romantic partner. She was considered studious and known to always attend her classes and other engagements unless she had a valid reason. On July 26, 1984, Petra had a normal day ahead of her. She'd been living in student housing in the city of Braunschweig, Germany, while studying towards her master's degree in computer science after completing both her undergraduate and honors degrees. Petra was in the process of completing her thesis in computer language. On that Thursday morning, Petra dressed and got ready for the day. She'd made plans to spend the upcoming holidays with her family back in Wolfsburg and work on completing her thesis while at home. Petra's parents had gone away on vacation, and she intended on going home to celebrate her brother's birthday that afternoon. Petra told a friend that she first needed to visit her dentist before taking a bus back to Wolfsburg. She'd also asked her neighbor to keep an eye on her plants while she was away for the holidays. Petra visited the dentist and was last seen waiting for a bus in the Braunschweig city center sometime that afternoon. However, Petra never made it home that evening. Her brother was concerned, but believed that Petra might not have been able to make the trip because of her extensive study schedule. When 2 entire days had passed and he hadn't heard from his older sister, Karsten knew something was wrong. Petra hadn't even called to wish him a happy birthday. She wasn't the type of person to miss important family events. So on July 28, 1984, he called the police department in Wolfsburg to report Petra missing. Police launched an immediate search for Petra. The areas between Braunschweig and Wolfsburg were searched extensively. Petra's friends were questioned about her behavior prior to her disappearance. They all told police officers that Petra seemed normal. Her friends said that Petra was looking forward to going home and spending time with her family. They were also asked if she'd been acting differently before she disappeared. Every person that was questioned said that Petra kept to her normal routines. A search of Petra's apartment didn't reveal much either. All her personal belongings were left behind. There was nothing taken from her apartment. All that she had were the clothes she was wearing that day in her handbag. Police looked through her notes, but found nothing that indicated she may have had a secret lover or was planning to run away. Police then visited Petra's home in Wolfsburg. They interviewed her family to find out if there were any problems within the household. From what they'd learned, the family home was stable and loving. Both Petra's parents and her brothers said that they were a close-knit family, and there'd been no traumatic experience in her childhood or teenage years that could have prompted her disappearance. A search of Petra's bedroom at her parents' house once again revealed that she'd not taken any personal items with her. Police discovered that she'd also left some money behind at her family home. Then they looked through her bank account and found that she also had money in her account that hadn't been accessed since the day of her disappearance. With no new leads, the investigation began to slow down. However, over the next few months, police continued to monitor Petra's bank account, hoping that they could track her whereabouts. There still hadn't been any activity. To officers, it seemed impossible that any person who had disappeared by their own free will would be able to survive without money. They now believed the worst had happened. Police theorized that Petra may have met with an unfortunate end. Once again, they canvassed the area she frequented, but met with the same answers. No one had seen the young woman since the day she vanished. Searches of the routes between Wolfsburg and Braunschweig were conducted. Still, there was no trace of a body or any of Petra's personal belongings. Her family and friends made several appeals to the public, but nothing had come of their efforts. The case remained open, but was growing cold. On January the 11th, 1985, 6 months after Petra's disappearance, a German crime TV show named Aktenzeichen XY, that was similar in format to the US TV show Crime Watchers, aired an episode about Petra's disappearance. The show featured a reenactment of what police had come to believe may have happened to Petra the day she disappeared. Using police reports and eyewitness accounts, the show's producers recreated the route Petra would have taken from her hostel to the dentist and then to the bus stop that she was last seen at. Police hoped that by replaying the events of Petra's disappearance, it could help jog the memories of any possible eyewitnesses. They'd also told the public that the investigation was now being considered a possible homicide. However, their hopes were dashed when no new information or leads came from the airing of the TV show. However, unbeknownst to investigators at the time, the case was about to heat up once more. In July 1985, a year after Petra disappeared from a bus stop in Braunschweig, police began investigating the murder of a 14-year-old girl. According to reports, the girl had been assaulted and then strangled. Her body was discovered in a wooded area behind a bus stop. It had struck police that this was the same bus stop that Petra was last seen standing at when she disappeared on July 26, 1984, almost exactly a year earlier. Police conducted an investigation into the murder of a 14-year-old girl and quickly found themselves a suspect. According to German law, the authorities do not allow the true identity of a suspect to be released to the public for the safety of the suspect if he or she is released from prison in the future. The suspect was given the alias Günther K. He was a 19-year-old man who lived in Braunschweig and worked as a carpenter's assistant. Prior to the crime, Günther K. did not have any known criminal convictions. Günther K. was caught after several eyewitnesses came forward and said that they'd seen him talking to the girl at the bus stop before her body was discovered in the woods. During questioning, he confessed to luring the girl into the woods before attacking and killing her. Police then brought out their file on Petra Pacitka. Günther K. denied any knowledge of Petra or involvement in her disappearance, but the police didn't back down. They continued to question Günther K. when he remained in custody for the murder of the 14-year-old girl. Despite repeatedly questioning Günther K. and the use of various tactics to get a confession out of him, their suspect remained silent. Police believed that they'd reached an impasse with Günther K. Unexpectedly, their case was about to take another turn. In 1987, Günther K. decided he wanted to speak to police once more. This time, he admitted to meeting Petra near the same bus stop and luring her out to the woods to kill her, just as he did with a teenage girl. Based on the information provided by Günther K., police launched a second search and investigation into Petra's disappearance and possible murder. Using sniffer dogs and several search teams, police tried desperately to locate Petra's remains. After an extensive search of the forested area, they came up empty-handed. A search of Gunter K's residence did not provide police with any physical evidence that linked him to the disappearance of Petra. Gunter K eventually went on trial for the murder of the 14-year-old girl. Although he confessed to murdering Petra, Gunter K was never formally charged with her murder due to lack of evidence. He was found guilty of the assault and murder of the 14-year-old girl and sentenced to life in prison. Years after he was imprisoned, Gunter K allegedly retracted his statement. He never provided any reason as to why he initially confessed to the murder of Petra Pacitka. In 1989, Petra Pacitka was declared legally dead after 5 years of being missing without a trace. Her family was left shattered by her disappearance, and they'd come to believe their daughter was dead and her remains lost forever. The case was officially closed by police. Petra's parents and brother mourned her loss, and after years of waiting for a miracle, Petra's father eventually passed away without knowing what had really happened to his daughter. But no one would believe the unexpected twist that was about to happen in the case over 3 decades later. On September 15, 2015, police in Dusseldorf, Germany responded to a call from an apartment complex reporting an attempted burglary. When they arrived at the apartment, they were greeted by an older woman and several other residents. The woman explained that she'd returned home and noticed pry marks on the outer frame of her front door. The marks looked as if they'd been made by a crowbar. Police searched the apartment and found that nothing had been taken. They questioned the woman, who told them her name was Mrs. Petra Schneider and that she was 55 years old. She had seemed a bit evasive when answering personal questions, which prompted the police to ask her for proof of her identity. At first she refused, but she eventually gave in and brought out an old identity document and student card. Police on the scene were not prepared for what they were about to discover. On the identity document and student card was the name Petra Pacitka. Police once again asked the woman for her real name, and she confessed that she was Petra Pacitka, the woman who was reported missing in 1984 and then declared dead in 1989. Police then asked Petra to come with them to the station to answer a few questions. At the police station, officers were curious about what caused Petra to go into hiding. She told police officers that she'd made the decision of her own free will. When asked if she'd experienced any trauma in her childhood or as an adult, Petra said that wasn't the case. She explained to officers that she'd experienced a very good childhood and did not encounter any problems in her adult life either. She was then asked how she'd managed to pay for living expenses when she'd initially disappeared. Petra told officers she'd saved up about 4,000 Deutschmarks, equivalent to about $1,200 in today's currency, and had used that money to pay for her accommodations. She also took on several menial jobs and took payment in cash. According to reports, Petra had also taken on several illicit jobs to make herself extra money anonymously. She didn't open a bank account and paid for everything, including rent, with cash she'd made from the several jobs she was doing. Officers then asked her how she managed to remain undetected over the years. Petra told them that she didn't have a passport, driver's license, or bank account. She'd been living under a false name without official documents for the last 31 years. Petra confessed to moving around a lot in her younger years and had lived in several different cities in West Germany. She had then moved to the apartment in Dusseldorf in 2004 and had been living there ever since. To their knowledge, police said that Petra never married or had any children. She appeared to have remained single since her disappearance all those years ago. A check of her fingerprints on the police database proved that she was, in fact, Petra Pacitka. The discovery of Petra created quite a stir in the German media. Neighbors of Petra, who were interviewed by police and reporters, said that Petra was the only person they'd ever seen enter the apartment. She'd always been quiet and kept to herself most of the time. Petra, they said, was not someone who brought a lot of attention to herself. Everyone knew Petra as Mrs. Schneider. They never knew she had any living relatives. Upon receiving the news that Petra was found alive in Dusseldorf, her mother and brother became overwhelmed. Police reported that they were in tears after learning that Petra was still alive. Petra, though, remained adamant that she did not want to go back to her family and did not make any contact with them, despite their eagerness to see her again. Both Petra's mother and brother resorted to writing a letter and handing it over to police to give to Petra. They hoped that she'd eventually come to her senses and return to the family home. Petra was not charged by police officers for disappearing in 1984. Police stated that it wasn't illegal for adults to voluntarily disappear. However, she was told by authorities that she'd have to have herself declared as alive by the government once more. It's been reported that to this day, Petra continues to live alone and has not made any contact with her family since she was discovered alive. Despite the extensive
That's
media
weird.
coverage on the case since she was found alive, Petra has refused to tell reporters the real reason for her disappearance and has asked for privacy. Petra's case has puzzled crime enthusiasts over the years, and many have come up with bizarre theories that explain her reason for disappearing. Some theorize that Petra was recruited by a West German Secret Service agency during the Cold War. This theory was backed by the fact that Petra was an expert in the field of computer technology, and during the Cold War, computers were a new emerging technology. Many believe that Petra would have proved to be an invaluable asset to any spy agency. Her ability to work with computers added credibility to this theory because she would have been useful in the field of research and intelligence gathering. The theory was further compounded by the confession of Günter K. Conspiracy theorists had come to the conclusion that police forced a confession out of Günter K. to take off the pressure from Petra's disappearance and stop people from asking too many questions. This allegedly was a very common practice used during the Cold War to have important individuals disappear from society. However, the prevailing theory is that Petra simply wanted to be left alone. Some believe that she craved being anonymous or was extremely introverted. This need may have developed from the political tension Germany faced during the Cold War. Given her quiet personality, it's believed that Petra just wanted to get away from it all. By faking her own death, she was able to continue living without the need to be part of a society that was fighting for freedom. The stress of the era might have caused her to feel the need to be alone. Petra's case has captured the attention of many within the true crime community and has given rise to much speculation. Many have found her behavior to be selfish, while others were sure that her degree in computer science was the main reason for her disappearance. In the end, though, Petra's actions did have a detrimental effect on the people around her. Not only did her disappearance lead to a massive search and the waste of valuable resources, but she also put her family through a tremendous amount of emotional damage. For years, they believed that Petra had died and her body would never be found. Many have argued in online forums that Petra should have told her family that she wanted to leave and be on her own. Even to this day, Petra's stubborn resolve to remain anonymous and have no contact with her family has left people commenting that she may be suffering with severe anxiety or other mental health issues. It remains to be seen if Petra will change her mind about reuniting with her family.